Hello and welcome to the Gear4music Synths and Tech channel. Today we're joined by Toby from Chauvet and we're going to be discussing some of these lights behind us from the Chauvet GigBar range. So Toby, what have we got here today?
So as you said, we've got our GigBar range. Our GigBar range is part of the Pack and Go family. So it's all about that ease and quickness of being able to set up a light show that fills the room, but is nice and simple to set up. Here we have the GigBar 2. That's the entry level one, which is the basic system of just power lights, as well as derby lights and strobe lights with the laser on top. So you're getting quite a lot of features in that unit. It's kind of to give you everything you need in one go. At the back, we have the GigBAR Move ILS, which has extra features, but of course you can see that it has the moving heads. This is where you get into bigger venues with more vision and all that. Behind me, we have the GigBAR Move Plus ILS, which is the largest in the range, also the most bright heads in it, as well as the spots and that. We'll go into detail later. And new at the front is our GigBAR Bridge, which has a few interesting options that allow you to do a lot more with the light and fit different scenarios.
Cool, yeah, this is the first time I'm seeing this actually. It looks great. It'd be interesting to know who the GigBAR range is aimed at.
Oh yeah, so we try and make it so it's versatile for many types of performances, from DJs to performers, even installation, to be honest. It can handle all three. But we add a lot of features in that allow you to take more control and have it set up the way you want. So often we find 2 GigBars either side really works really well for a DJ, but sometimes a band might want a central one at the back because it does that wide coverage, and then they'll supplement it with washers. It's a great system to be a beginner with. So you just got your quick setup lights and then you can expand it later, or you can add it to an existing range if you want to add more fill in certain areas. So we try and make it so it works for everyone. On each of them, you get full control of whether you want to turn a particular effect off. So if strobe lights is the example I often use at weddings and that, wedding DJ, first dance, you don't necessarily want the strobe lights just firing away. So you can turn that off and on at any point you want. So you get a huge amount of control in being able to tailor it to the kind of performance or user you are. So we've tried to make it accessible to all. And it's just a matter of how you set it up as to what will work for you.
Right, okay. So Toby, can you talk us through what sort of lighting effects each of these GigBars provide?
Certainly. So we'll start with the GigBar 2 on the side over there. The GigBar 2 has pars in the middle at the bottom. You see they're on red at the minute. Great for just doing a good wash coverage. They've got a lot of adjustability, so they can adjust to the size of your room. Just on the outsides next to the pars is the derby effects. So that's the beams, really good with haze because then you get all those lovely beams in the air. Really good for filling that space, especially on the early dance floor where you want to make it feel active and that it can really draw people in. Also does dot effect if you don't have the haze, so it's very versatile. In the bar itself, you have UV and strobe lights. Very good mix there to allow you, as I said, you can control them. So if you only want the UV on all the time or that, you've got a lot of options there. And at the very top, you've got the laser as well. Burst laser, so it's great for doing loads of dots or doing loads of beams in the air, just filling that space. That's what we've tried to do with these GigBars. It's just all about getting you everything you may need. But that unit doesn't offer moving heads, which nicely moves us to the GigBar Move ILS, which is the first unit in the range that has the moving heads. So it's 10-watt moving heads. They add the spots which have gobos, color wheel, so it gives a bit more surface to the lighting you're putting on, a bit more pattern work. It's not necessarily about filling the air. They do great beams, but it's also about putting that projection and movement. So moving heads can be a great option to add a lot more movement into the feel of your lighting than just the beams in the air. Beams are a great visual, but moving heads, they just have a bit more substance to them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you get all the features that you have on the GigBar Move 2, but you also get extra things in terms of control now. So all the bars can be controlled by foot switch or remote, but with the ILS, you can then use a controller, which we'll be using later, an ILS command in order to use them and make a quick and easy light show. But it's also not the brightest we do, because some venues are bigger. So of course we made the GigBar Move Plus ILS. Everyone loves brighter lights, and that is the main improvement on the GigBar Move Plus ILS. It does have the bigger moving heads, which you can see, a lot more punch to them, but it has all the features of the previous ones, as well as all those control features. So as you upgrade, you are genuinely getting brighter, and you're just getting the extra moving heads, adding that extra feature to these. Yeah. And then on the GigBar Bridge, this is actually where we lose some features, but it's more versatile unit. There's more options in rigging this and use cases. You have the moving heads that are nice and bright, do really good pattern work. But in the bar itself, we've got quad washers, so RGBA, and they just are great at doing nice color coverage. So if you want a more simpler, easier pattern, not everyone's all about beams in the skies, and this allows you to have just a nice wash and then the moving heads filling in that pattern work. So I often find a lot more bands look to this because they want a bit more. I mean, you want to be seeing yourselves, and they want to more focus on them, understandably. They're doing the work. But then it allows for that colour and that movement to be implicated. Yeah. And then, of course, depending on your performance, you might want all the beams, lasers and strobe as well. Yeah. We try and make it so it matches on anything. So that's the differences between each.
So now we know what they do. How easy are they to actually set up?
So super quick, as I say, it's pack and go. So it's meant to be a few minutes, if that, in order to set them up. Generally, you just set up your stand, nice, sturdy, big speaker-style stand, so it's 32mm at the top. And then it's just a case of popping the light bar on top. These three, all the ones with ILS in their name, they have D-Fi built in, which is our wireless protocol. So don't even have to run DMX cable to these. Or you can just run them on auto mode if you need. Yeah, much easier than having to carry loads of copper around in order to do your setup. And our D-Fi protocol is really robust. We get very little issues of interference on it and that kind of stuff. We have a lot of ranges, channel selection. So if you are having interference, just choose another channel. Yep. Often I recommend going high, just because a lot of people's Wi-Fi routers are in the low bands. Yep. So I always recommend just go straight to the highest and all your issues. Right. And then the GigBar 2, of course, is DMX, or you can do manual control on them as well. So if you're doing manual control, it's just set up and stand, plug in power, and away you go. Yep.
So if you've got multiple of these lights, what are the ways that you can link and control them?
Okay, so there's a few options. We'll start off with the GigBar 2. So that one has, well, they all have foot switches except for the bridge. Yep. So you can just use foot switch, great for those. Often I find as a bassist myself, I'm the one who's normally made to be the foot switch on that. So that one makes it really easy. There's a IR remote for the GigBar 2. So it's just point and click and you get the control that way. And then you've got DMX, which you can cable up. To link it to others for that one is nice and easy. You take DMX out and then it just connects to the other one. And then anything you send to that first bar will be copied onto the other. You can set which slave the following one is so that you get a pattern that works across a couple of units. Yep. Because you want it to sort of mirror. We like symmetry. Yeah. So we want it so that when that derby on the far side is in red, the derby on this side is on red as well, and it all matches up. So that's that one. You'll have to use cable, I'm afraid. I know you don't like it. But on the ILS ones, they all have the D-Fi built in. Yep. The only difference with the remote on that is it's a RF remote. So you don't need to point directly at the unit. You just have to be within range. And linking on them, these can transmit their signal. So with the D-Fi built in, you can do transmit or receive. You just tell the first unit you're a transmitter, transmit on this channel, and you tell the rest just to listen on their receiver. And you can send any of the protocols over on that. So you can send whether you're running one as the main auto program and you want the others to follow it, or if you're running one to receive the remote signal, and then the others will follow it. It's better to do it that way rather than having them all listen to the remote, because if one of them doesn't quite hear the remote, then it can be out of time. Right. So if you want a show that looks all cohesive, then it's better to have them linked in that way. And then the best way I recommend to link is ILS, because that is a automated show that's pre-built into these. The GigBar Move and the GigBar Move Plus ILS can actually be the masters. They have the programming in them so that you don't necessarily need a controller. They will control the rest of the ILS. But the great thing with that is the program's much more developed to work across multiple units. So you can tell it's ILS 1, 2 or 3 and 4. And then it will adapt the program in order to make a show that's interesting across all of them rather than just mimicry. So there'll be times where it is doing mirrored on either side, and then times where the pattern will work across it. So it feels a lot more programmed and worked out. So it makes it a lot easier to make it look like a lot more effort has been put into the show than there actually has. If you do want to know more about ILS, it's a really great system of controlling the lights. I was here before showing off the ILS command, really good controller. It does explain more what ILS can do, how versatile it can be, as well as the controller itself and all the functions you can do. So I really recommend if you get a minute to check that out.
Perfect, yeah. And we'll link the video in the description below. So obviously the GigBAR 2 is a great starting point, but say you want to play slightly bigger venues, what more do you get with the Move and the Move Plus?
Well, the main benefit with the moving heads is the range of projection.
Yeah.
So yes, GigBAR 2 is great. It will cover that dance floor, but you get a lot of venues that do go quite deep, especially if your weddings is a great one because you end up with all the dining area as well. You want it to reach into that and draw people in. Or if your band's starting to perform at bigger venues, you really want to make sure you're interacting with the whole crowd, because if you're very at the front, the energy's all there, but then you go 5 meters in and it sort of dies down. You want to include everyone in your lighting because you want them to feel involved. They are involved. They're there to see you, and you want to make sure they're included in that. And lighting's a great way to do that. With the moving heads, their projection just goes so much further than the spread of the Kinters and the Derbys because they're very widespread. They're good at putting a lot of colour out at the front, but it doesn't quite reach it. So that's why upgrading to like a Move ILS, it starts shooting that light out into the crowd. But of course, as you get into bigger venues, then of course you need to move to the bigger moving heads.
Yeah, of course.
And then that's where you want to start upgrading to the bigger ones so that you can get that coverage. You can also, on each of these, increase the angle that they cover as well. So if you get them wider, you can go on that. But a smaller moving head doesn't quite get that pattern going across as well as the large one because it's got a wider angle as well. So it will just do a much bigger projection and include a lot more people into it. And then if you go even bigger still, you probably want more moving heads. Well, there's only so many GigBars you can fit on a stand.
Yeah.
The bridge is fantastic at allowing a lot of moving heads because you can link 3 of these together between 2 stands.
Yep.
And then the sight of 6 lights covering your whole crowd, it includes everyone. And on those larger venues, those much larger venues, when you want to include everyone, it's far better to go for that where you're getting that distance and coverage in order to include them in. So it's all about the size of what you're working with as you step up. It's not necessarily that the GigBAR 2 isn't going to be sufficient for your needs, but you're probably going to need to increase it. We often find that as people get 2 GigBAR 2s as they're starting out, they'll eventually add a GigBAR Move ILS, and they'll put it in the middle, and that's what starts spreading you further out, getting that higher projection, higher wattage LEDs, more coverage with that glass front. And then, of course, when you upgrade again, well, you might get rid of your GigBAR 2s, get your GigBAR Pluses, and then you're really spreading out. You're doing a lot more coverage and can do a lot more size venue. You can spread out your stage a bit. So it's a really great way of just stepping up slightly each time you're going through the range.
Perfect, yeah. And everyone loves moving heads anyway. Yeah. So is there anything else you can do to sort of take your light show up a notch?
Well, the bars themselves offer a lot. But of course, you might have a performance or something that's going wider or specific need for more washers in areas. So one of the things you can do for the ILS range is we do a whole bunch of ILS products that all link on that ILS program. So you can expand with more beams if you want or more washers. It's very much dependent on what sort of performance you want and what your needs are. But there's plenty of options with that. One of the things I do recommend if you are using units like this, because of the Derby effects and the lasers, they look best with haze or smoke. Yeah. So if you get a bit of that in the air, then it just really fills it out. And it's just a matter to your needs. If you're very mobile, we do a hard case for the 2 GigBar movers. That makes it a lot quicker and easier than 2 separate bags. My favourite bit is it has wheels, so it's much quicker to roll that in and out, and of course protects your unit a bit more. So it's all a matter of what you want from your setup. If you're planning to go wider, then there's plenty of extras you could do. I mean, you could buy more GigBars, I'm always happy with that, but there's a lot more options if you do want to just add a bit more washing or more Derby effects. You can really start tailoring your setup to your performance. But the GigBar itself is a great starting point of covering all bases. And then you'll feel from your crowd what they get excited about and develop it from there.
So thanks, Toby, for all your great insight onto the Chauvet GigBar range. We have actually filmed a load of other videos with Toby on a load of other Chauvet gear on the Synths and Tech channel. If you'd like to have a look at those, we'll leave them in the description below. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.